The private jet touched down in Charleston just as the rain started, and Lily Warren pressed her forehead against the cool window of the terminal, watching sheets of water blur the runway lights into streaks of gold. She had exactly 48 hours to get the Donovan estate ready for its new owner, a man whose assistant had been curt on the phone and whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. Connor Donovan, billionaire real estate developer, notoriously difficult, impossible to please, and according to the internet, devastatingly handsome in that cold, untouchable way that made women stupid. Lily was not going to be stupid. She grabbed her weather-beaten leather bag and headed for the car rental desk, mentally cataloging everything she needed to accomplish. The estate had been closed for 15 years, ever since Connor's parents died in what the tabloids called a tragic boating accident. Now he was finally returning, and her interior design firm had landed the contract to make the place livable again. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of project that could launch her small business into something significant. The drive to the estate took 40 minutes through winding roads flanked by ancient oaks dripping with Spanish moss. When the house finally emerged from the darkness, Lily's breath caught despite her best efforts to remain professional. It was a masterpiece of antebellum architecture, white columns rising 3 stories, wrap-around porches that probably offered stunning views of the water in daylight. But there was something sad about it too, something abandoned. She let herself in with the key the property manager had couriered over, flipping light switches until warm yellow illuminated rooms that smelled of dust and time. Furniture sat shrouded in white sheets like ghosts. Family portraits lined the walls, and Lily found herself drawn to one in particular, a family of 3, the parents radiating warmth, a teenage boy between them with dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right through the canvas. That was taken 3 months before they died. Lily spun around so fast she nearly knocked over a side table. The man standing in the doorway matched the boy in the portrait, except the warmth was gone. Connor Donovan was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his dark jacket perfectly. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, and those eyes storm gray and absolutely empty fixed on her with the kind of intensity that made her pulse jump. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow," she managed, recovering her professional composure. "I'm Lily Warren from Warren Designs." "I know who you are." His voice was deep, rough around the edges like he didn't use it much. "I decided to come early." He moved into the room, and Lily noticed the way he avoided looking at the portraits, the way his shoulders tensed as he took in the space. This was more than a man returning to an old house. This was someone walking into a museum of pain. "I've prepared some initial concepts for each room," she said, pulling her tablet from her bag. "We can start with the main living areas, or if you'd prefer to see the bedrooms first." "No." The word came out sharp, almost harsh. He cleared his throat. "Sorry, no bedrooms yet. Start with something else." Lily nodded slowly, making a mental note. "The library, then. It has good bones, and we can make it feel completely different from how it was." Something flickered across his face. Different would be good. They spent the next hour walking through the ground floor, and Lily quickly realized that Connor Donovan wasn't difficult, he was drowning. Every room held memories he wasn't ready to face. Every corner contained ghosts he couldn't outrun. When she suggested keeping the original fireplace mantel in the dining room, his face went pale. "That's where the Christmas stockings hung," he said quietly. "My mother would fill them with oranges and chocolate coins. My father always pretended Santa forgot him and she'd magically find one more behind the tree." "We can replace it," Lily said gently. "Create new focal points, new memories." His eyes met hers, and for just a moment she saw something raw and wounded beneath the cold exterior. "Can you do that?" "Replace memories? No," she admitted, "but you can build around them, make room for different ones." Connor studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Show me what you're thinking for the library." They worked until nearly midnight, and Lily discovered that, beneath the gruff exterior, Connor had opinions, strong ones about colors and textures and the way light moved through a space. He didn't want anything too modern, nothing cold or minimalist. He wanted warmth, he said, but couldn't quite articulate what that meant. Rich woods, Lily suggested, sketching on her tablet. Deep greens and golds, leather furniture that gets better with age, books that actually get read, not decorator sets, a place that feels lived in, loved. Loved, he repeated like the word was foreign. I haven't been back here since the funeral, couldn't face it. Lily saved her sketches and looked at him directly. Why now? Because running doesn't actually take you anywhere. He moved to the window, hands shoved in his pockets. I've built half the skyline in 3 different cities, bought and sold properties worth billions, and I still wake up in the middle of the night seeing my mother's face when they told her the boat was taking on water. I was supposed to be with them that day. Had a football game I didn't want to miss. The confession hung in the air between them, heavy and unexpected. Lily knew she should probably say something comforting, something professional, but everything that came to mind felt hollow. I lost my dad when I was 22, she found herself saying instead. Heart attack, completely sudden. I spent 2 years thinking about all the conversations we never had, all the times I was too busy to visit. Eventually, I realized he wouldn't have wanted me to stop living. Connor turned from the window. How did you manage that, the realizing part, small steps, and a good therapist, honestly? She offered a small smile. And I threw myself into work, which wasn't always healthy, but it helped me create things he would have been proud of. Is that what you're doing here, creating something someone would be proud of? I'm trying to create something you'll actually want to live in, Lily said. A home, not a mausoleum. Something shifted in his expression, the hard lines softening just slightly. I'm not an easy person to work with. I've noticed. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. My assistant said you were honest, that's why I hired your firm. Your assistant also said you fire people for breathing wrong. Only twice, Connor said, and this time he definitely almost smiled. Both times they deserved it. Over the following days, Lily fell into a rhythm. She'd arrive at the estate early, armed with paint samples and fabric swatches, and Connor would appear from wherever he'd been walking the property. She guessed, trying to make peace with the grounds that held as many memories as the house. They'd work through each space methodically, and slowly, incrementally, she watched him begin to breathe easier. The library came together first. Rich mahogany shelves, a massive desk positioned to catch the morning light, leather chairs deep enough to get lost in. Connor ran his hand along the new wood, and Lily caught something vulnerable in his expression. My father had a desk like this, he said. Not the same, but similar. He'd sit there every Sunday afternoon, reading the paper and pretending to do work, but really he was just available. If I wanted to talk, he was there. That's a good memory, Lily said softly. It is. He looked at her. Thank you for that. They moved on to the living spaces, and Lily discovered that Connor had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. When she suggested a particularly bold wallpaper pattern, he raised an eyebrow and said it looked like a Victorian fever dream. When she defended her choice, he actually laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. You're not afraid of me, he observed one afternoon. They were in the sunroom, debating between 2 shades of cream that looked identical to Lily but apparently meant the world of difference to him. Should I be? Most people are. I have a reputation for being difficult and demanding and occasionally firing people for breathing wrong. Exactly. Lily set down her paint chips and looked at him squarely. You're not difficult, you're hurting, there's a difference. Connor went very still. You don't know anything about me. I know you avoid the 2nd floor because that's where your parents' bedroom is. I know you can't look at the dock without your hands shaking. I know you pretend to be on conference calls when you're actually just sitting in the garden, staring at nothing. She kept her voice gentle. And I know you're trying so hard to face this, and that takes more courage than most people have. He turned away, jaw tight. You shouldn't psychoanalyze your clients. I'm not, I'm just paying attention. For a moment she thought she'd pushed too far, crossed some professional line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then Connor's shoulders dropped, tension bleeding out of them. I saw it happen, he said quietly. The boat. I was home, watching from my bedroom window with binoculars because I was bored after the game. I saw it start to list, saw my father trying to get my mother to the life raft, and I just stood there frozen while his voice cracked. I couldn't move, couldn't call for help, just watched. Lily's heart cracked open. She moved closer, not touching, just present. You were a child. Frozen is what happens in trauma. It's not a choice. I've told myself that for 20 years. Doesn't make it feel true. Feelings don't care about truth, Lily said. They're not logical. But you can learn to carry them differently. He finally looked at her and his eyes were wet. How, like this, coming back here, facing it, letting someone help you? Is that what you're doing, helping me? I'm trying to. Connor held her gaze, something shifting in the air between them, something that had nothing to do with paint colors or furniture arrangements. Lily felt her pulse quicken, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how his presence seemed to fill the entire room. I should go, she said, though she didn't move. It's late, stay for dinner. The words came out rushed, almost uncertain. I mean, there's a restaurant in town if you haven't eaten. Professional courtesy. It was absolutely not professional courtesy, and they both knew it. Lily should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember that he was a client and a billionaire and completely out of her league in every possible way. I haven't eaten, she heard herself say. The restaurant was a small seafood place on the waterfront, locally owned and clearly beloved. Connor seemed different here, away from the estate, more relaxed, less haunted. He ordered for them both without being presumptuous about it, checking that she liked scallops and wasn't allergic to anything, and Lily found herself charmed despite her best intentions. Tell me about your business, he said once their food arrived. How does someone end up designing interiors? My mom was an artist, Lily said. Not successful by commercial standards, but she saw beauty in everything. She taught me to look at spaces as emotional experiences, not just functional areas. After she got sick, I started redesigning her hospital room, bringing in fabrics, changing the lighting, adding personal touches. It made her happy, gave her something to look forward to. When she passed, I decided to do that for other people. I'm sorry about your mother. Thank you. It was 5 years ago, but some days it feels like yesterday. She twirled her fork through pasta. Is that why you stayed away? Because it feels like yesterday? Connor was quiet for a moment. Partly, but also because I built this entire life trying to prove something, that I was strong, successful, didn't need anyone. Coming back here meant admitting that I'm still that scared kid who couldn't save his parents. You don't have to save them, Lily said gently. They're gone. But you can save yourself. His eyes met hers, intense and searching. You're very wise for someone so young. I'm 31, not exactly spring chicken territory. I'm 35. Does that make me ancient, practically decrepit? He smiled then, a real smile that reached his eyes, and Lily felt something flutter in her chest. This was dangerous territory. She was falling for a client, for a man with more emotional baggage than anyone should carry, for someone who lived in a completely different world than her small design business and modest apartment.